ask the young people questions. After they have their conversation, we will have mics on both sides. Just raise your hand and somebody will come to you with the mic.
Hi again, for real this time. I just wanted to, I think tonight was a very powerful night because we got to hear from the actual students who are in these schools, in these classrooms, and often as parents, we want the best for them, but sometimes we don't see what they really want for themselves. So I wanted to take this opportunity to have the teens introduce themselves again, and I'm just gonna ask them, this is my 2 questions for you. I wanna know your name, again. And I know you guys are part of an organization. Can you tell me the name of the organization and what compelled you to start to be active around these issues, and why do you feel that you need to do this?
My name is Toby Paperno. I'm part of Teens Take Charge, and the thing that compelled me to go to Teens Take Charge is I went to for the first half of my life, I think, before I went to middle school, I was in a bubble of privilege, like I said in my speech, I guess. And then I went to this middle school. I didn't get into my top choice. I went to Park Slope Collegiate. That was like, I went to Park Slope Collegiate, which was this middle school that was focused around diversity, focused around school integration, had a lot of things around that. And I was like, wow, my experience isn't the norm at all, and I want to do something about that. And so then when I got into this high school, Beacon, which is mostly white, mostly upper middle class people, I was like, I really want to do something about this. So I searched up youth organizations that I can get involved with, and I joined Teens Take Charge.
Hi, my name is Leanne Nunes. I am a part of IntegrateNYC, and I started activism because I realized from a very young age that there were a lot of things that just weren't right. There were a lot of things that myself and my community didn't have, and I felt that was unfair. But specifically for like schools, I always remember being very young and seeing High School Musical. And I was like, when I get to high school, I'm gonna be just like that. I'm gonna do cartwheels down the hallway, right? And I had this idea that as the years went on, I realized we're a fantasy before I even opened that big high school book. Because I knew that as a young Black girl from the Bronx, from an immigrant family, that just wasn't for me. Because there was only one Black girl, I believe, in High School Musical, and she wasn't exactly like who I was. She must have had some type of money. There was just too many differences. I wasn't that person. And for me to feel so helpless, I felt like I had to do something. And I was fortunate enough to meet people who taught me that I had a voice and how to use it. And I decided to use that power and that knowledge and help give that to other youth.
Hi, my name is Gabby Palermo, and I got involved in activism because for the majority of my life, I've been going to majority white schools, and I'm from Inwood. I'm Puerto Rican, my family's Puerto Rican, and I would go to school and I would go back to my neighborhood and I would see how where I grew up is so vastly different from where I go to school, and how the lack of resources that are in my community, and how at my school, it's like, I've always been taught that going to a majority white school, I'm gonna get all these opportunities and I'm gonna be able to succeed and, you know, like move on with my life. And I feel like that's just not right. And I wanted to start speaking up about that and getting more involved. And I'm also part of IntegrateNYC. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
My name is Dulce Marquez. I'm from Teens Take Charge, a recent high school graduate from New Heights Academy Charter School in Harlem, and I'm from Washington Heights. I got involved mostly because in my high school years, I often saw opportunities that were not in my high school, and I personally did not think that was unfair. That was very normal for me. To have to ninth grade seek for a program that was gonna get me free SAT prep, a program that ended up being like my a place where I had to have all the opportunities because my high school did not provide any of those. So for me, that was pretty normal, having to go out and take these opportunities that my high school didn't have. It wasn't until senior year that, you know, you go through the college admissions and you realize that none of that is fair. The fact that you have to come late from school or come late from the programs you applied to back home because you don't have any of that at school is seriously unfair. And so I got involved just because of my experience and because I'm hoping that that's not what we have to teach our children, that they have to seek opportunities outside and have to come late at 12 a.m. because they don't have internet or whatnot.
Now, I want to open up to the audience. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand for the teens if you want to ask them about their experiences. I mean, they're well-versed in policy, so if you want to pick their brain on policy, my one ask is that we model the behavior that we want to exude with our children and give them the respect they need, because I don't want to be mama bear on you either. So if there's any questions, please raise your hands.
Hi. So we have a lot of grown-ups in this room, and we have a lot of grown-ups who actually are in a position to make changes. What would you like to tell us to do?
Personally, I would like to tell you to support us in our efforts and support our policy that we've created, which you can find at teenstakecharge.com and all the data at teenstakecharge.com or IntegrateNYC.org. And you can find all of that there. You can find our in-depth policy plan, our in-depth enrollment equity campaign, which we created, and you can see why this is an issue that we need to solve now, and you should just support us, spread our message, I guess.
So if you have questions, can you just line up, because we only got one mic, and I don't think we're gonna make it across the room. So if you can just line up over here, and we'll take your questions.
Hi, my question is for the young ladies from Washington Heights and West Harlem. I'm from Washington Heights and West Harlem. I'm a parent there. And my high school son is actually in Beacon. So I understand the search from uptown. You have to leave your community to go to a different school. My question to you is, I have still an elementary school child. So what would you say to parents of elementary school children in Washington Heights and West Harlem right now? What could we be doing? What should we be doing in our elementary schools so that you don't have to come to the realization that you did in your high school because your parents weren't able to or did not know and didn't have such amazing high school students telling them what to do?
I think that we're talking a lot about policy, and I think that is important, but like you're saying, it could start from the elementary school age, and basically telling the elementary school students of color that going to a white school does not mean that it's better, does not mean that it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you're gonna get a better education. It doesn't mean that if you go to a majority white school that you have a higher chance of success in life. Because I think that being at a majority white school, you feel like a token, or you feel like the person on the poster that's supposed to get people of color to come to our school and be like, hey, we're diverse. But I think telling them from a young age that being in a white school doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you are better than people who don't go to white schools, you know what I mean?
You said everything important for them to say. I think it's interesting. I went to high school in Harlem, so I walked every morning to high school. So I was with Latinos and Black students my whole life. So that's an interesting question you asked because you're from Washington Heights, but your son is going to Beacon. I'd say for your elementary school child, remind him that the people that are in Washington Heights are very powerful people. That they are the people that are supposed to. I guess what I'm saying is everything you said, but these are powerful people, and just like the opposite of what you said. Going to a majority white school doesn't mean doesn't mean anything, but also being in the space of Latino means a lot. Like, and so Washington Heights, I know growing up, it was very important for me to see these people and feel safe with them. So when I did end up attending a college class where there are a majority, I'm the only Latina, that overwhelmed me a lot. So I'm really glad that I could go back to my neighborhood, and even though it's not completely gentrified, I still see Latinos. So that still makes me feel safe.
Okay, so I go to Eleanor Roosevelt High School, and it is very predominantly white on the Upper East Side. And actually, it's in the news right now for some very racist incident that just happened. You can look it up if you want the details, I don't know. But even before this, our school just has so many issues in terms of like microaggressions and bigger incidents that haven't been dealt with. And my friends and I really want to, it has, for the application process, it has, it's like based on grades, but it has priority to District 2, which in itself is just very flawed. The way it like conveniently snakes around Manhattan and like stops at 94th and 96th Street, I don't know. Anyway, so we really want to take away the District 2 priority, and we've been talking to the leadership at my school and getting very vague answers on how we can do that. So
tell it.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you guys have any suggestions of how we can actually try and implement change.
I go to that school, and I know you. I'm so happy that you and your phone are here, like from our school. I think that's really great because I didn't think anyone would come out, but that you two are here are really great. I'm just really. And yes, I do know what's been going on, like in our administration, not addressing anything and saying that the DOE has all the power and that they're not able to do anything. But it's like, students, we are all coming together after this incident happened, you know? And I think that is a statement in itself. It's a powerful statement in itself. And I feel like if the administration in our school is not doing anything, we should take it upon ourselves to go and advocate for what we need and talk about the 5 R's and the things that our principal does not want to address. And I think that like, if you want to get involved in IntegrateNYC, that would be a great thing. Yeah.
I was gonna say something similar. It's like take it upon yourself to say and do something. Don't wait for someone else to do that, because waiting around just leads to more problems. Like you don't have to wait for your friends to say something. If you feel like something's urgent enough, then you go to your school administration, you go to someone else and you say something, you get something done, right? It's not out of your hands, and it's not, if someone says it's the DOE and we can't do anything, they're lying, or they just don't want to deal with an issue. And you shouldn't take no for an answer when it comes to the safety of yourself and other students. To speak up.
And I just wanted to add on, today we had a sit-in at the end, I don't know, yeah, but so, and I actually brought this up, and our principal asked, okay, how many of you want to try and get rid of this ban? And almost every student who was part of the sit-in raised their hand, so I feel like, I don't know, if we can get somewhere with that. I don't know, because there are people who can hear that, so a a lot of students really want this, but I don't know how to get the policy changed.
Hey, you got the card. The card is there. Let's go.
Thank you for speaking today. I really appreciate it. I'm from NYU. I'm a freshman, and I'm studying the integration movement in education. And I was wondering, you've all had personal experiences that compelled you to join Teens Take Charge and Integrate NYC. How have you and your organizations attracted students and adults who don't have such experiences or have realized such experiences to join your movement?
So earlier when Epic was doing their performance, there was the concept of like white mouths to white ears. And I think as like underprivileged youth of color, it's harder to get other people to listen to your message when they don't necessarily understand. And I think the concept of white allies, but also adult allies, because as a youth, adults don't even necessarily listen to you. So having allies in different forms be able to also spread your message, it gets to wider audiences that you wouldn't necessarily reach.
I also think one really powerful tool for getting anyone to understand if they don't even like experience the issue is stories from anyone, like stories about the experiences you've gone through, testimony. That's all like. That's what got, I know some people that have joined Teens Take Charge because of what they've heard, even though they haven't experienced the issue themselves. Also, like, just showing people, like, the statistics, like, New York is the most segregated school system in America. New York is the most segregated school system in America. Yeah, that's like, yeah.
I'm just gonna repeat what Toby said, but we call it testimonies, not stories. These are testimonies because this system is very unfair. So right now, every student is being a victim. Even a white student is a victim of this system. And so those, when students are telling their story, they often like what statistics cannot tell, or the testimonies that, or the experiences that students are going through. So that's how we attract a lot of people in general.
And to add on to that real quick, there are statistics and there's things that people can Google, but when you personalize and humanize the people behind those statistics, I think it drives the point home a little further and deeper than it usually would if you just tell them numbers.
I apologize for the difficulty of this question in advance. So I just want to start with a little framing here. So there was this really important court case, Brown v. Board of Ed, that mandated that schools be desegregated. Much more recently, there was another court case that mandated that schools get adequate funding. This was the CFE, the Campaign for Fiscal Equity.
Yeah.
In both of these cases, our system has ignored that court ruling. So my question to you is, let's say the policies that you guys are asking for are adopted, but not implemented, right? Let's say it's there on paper, it's in the books, but it's not implemented. What steps would you take, or what would you see as the next step? How would you escalate if that were to happen?
I really think that having it down on paper isn't enough, as like I can kind of get by like your question. And I think that we see like all the students up here today, and I feel like it's the duty of the students, and not their duty, but it's like, I feel like adults and teachers and grown-ups, they're not in our shoes at the moment, and I feel like the students are the best ones to put these into like implementation. And my ideal thing would be to like have at every school like a student kind of, not a student council per se, but like a student group that gets together and actually implements these things and goes over the head of the administration, because they have better ideas, in my opinion. not to shade the administration, but yeah. And I think that if students are in charge of this implementation, then change will actually be made.
So let's say tomorrow the DOE implements like the 5 R's of real integration, right? Like they have it on paper, but it's not actually working out how we want it to. I feel like if there were actual representation in the DOE, like youth representation to make sure that things go according to plan, then it would actually work. If there's no one really on the inside to make sure that things are going as they should, then it won't really be implemented the way it's supposed to. So there's real integration, and that's the real representation piece that would really make it all come together.
Yeah. I think if it's implemented but there's nothing actually being done about it, we need to take action. We need to make consequences for the DOE. If the DOE is not hearing us, we need to make our voices so loud that they can't avoid talking to us. We need to put the blame on them more. We need to pressure them more into where they can't avoid the issue.
Okay. So I want to take a second to thank you guys for your testimonies, your courage. I would love personally and selfishly to get a copy of everyone's speech. So if that could live somewhere after this, that would be dope. One thing that I've heard, you guys are dealing with very big, heavy issues and challenges, systemic challenges. So it makes me curious, how do you define taking care of yourself through this work? And what resources would you like to see allocated to improve, should it need improving, how you take care of yourself through this process?
Do you mean like in schools? Like how to improve taking care of yourself in schools, or just personally?
Like, how's your heart?
Oh.
Self-care.
Well,
Self-care.
I try to practice self-love as much as possible. Like growing up, you hear and see a lot of things that tell you not to love yourself, whether it's how you look, how you speak, where you're from, what have you. And I feel like me loving myself and being the best me I can be is counteracting all of the systemic things and all the systemic institutional oppression that those before me have faced. And I try to make sure that me loving myself spreads to those around me. Because if I'm gonna shine, I want you to shine too.
That's a very good question. I remember the first CEC meeting I ever had. I was just like, whoa, what did I just experience? And I remember I saw a video of Chance Carranza at a town hall. I think it was a CEC meeting too, and I'm like, I hope he has a therapist. I really don't know. I don't know how people can go to those meetings and not cry themselves to sleep or something. So I think the best practice, and first of all, I prioritize my mental health, so that's how I care of myself. And then it's often like teens take charge. Just being able to be in a room where we're not even talking about politics, or even if we are, just being in a room where like you feel people who just are all about change, really care about what they're doing, you feel hopeful about the future. You don't CC meetings, you could lose all hope, and you go to team charges. You're like, oh yeah, no, we got this. And so I think that's how I take care of myself, by being in a room. If it's not team charge, but usually people that are really caring and care about this whole system and the world.
I mostly take care of myself by surrounding myself with people that I love and like people that I find interesting. I guess. Also, I make like playlists on Apple Music. I prioritize sleep. Try and get to sleep by 10:30 every night. Hard, but works most of the time. And I don't know.
The last question? No. Well, we have 2 more questions for you.
All right. So first of all, guys, you rock. So keep doing it. Don't stop when you're out of high school. Keep doing it. Doesn't have to stop because you're done with high school. But a specific question. I want to know how you guys feel about screens. So screens, particularly for middle school and high school, are one of the main cause of segregation in university schools. That those things that only if you are a certain grade. How do you feel? Do you feel that we could eliminate them, for example? We should eliminate, or you think we can't? Or anyway, just go. Tell me how you feel.
I think we should get rid of them.
To put it very simply, yes. I like the thought of like middle school, not elementary schoolers having to do some type of screen to get into middle school and repeat that process to get into high school. It's absurd, honestly. I think it's point blank ridiculous. To see my little sister, in order for her to go into 6th grade, she had to do the same thing I did to go from 8th grade to 9th grade, which is you look at all the schools, and it's not like she's picking a school, it's the school picking her. And it's not like you have any choice or say in the matter. It limits the students' possibilities and what they feel like they can do before they even step foot in the school building. And even while they're in the school building, they shouldn't feel like they have any limits at all.
I also feel like screens say that the administration or the system has control over your education and we have no power. It's basically what they're saying, and I think that screening in itself is just inherently biased and unfair. Yeah.
In terms of academic screening for middle school, no screen. But like for high school, in terms of academic screening, I'm highly opposed to it. But also, like, I think every time we talk about screens, we should really talk about the question, who are we trying to screen out? Because that's where we start finding out why these screens are in there in the first place. So yeah, that's all.
Okay, last question. It's sort of related to the screens a little bit. And so I'm a white person. And I talk, when I do my advocacy around this issue, I personally am very focused on integration and creating schools that I feel reflect the diversity of the city. And I personally agree with you all on the screening issue, just from a philosophical standpoint, not through a racial lens, but especially with the racial lens. But a theme that comes up when, particularly when I hear people of color talking about the integration issue, is I feel like there is this tension between white people like me who want to create these diverse communities as defined by race and are thinking about white and black and Latinx and different racial categories, and then hearing the testimonies about, I want to be able to go to school in my neighborhood with people that look like me and not be getting the message that we need to be in schools with white kids in order to have a strong education. Or even the idea sometimes, and I feel I do this, lapse into language where it's that the children of color are almost being objects that the white people need to be exposed to in order for the white people to learn how to be better. And for me, it's a tension that I personally struggle with as far as like prioritizing where my advocacy should be, and also in just finding the, messing up when I'm talking about these issues. So I'd love to hear from you guys about, like, if you feel like there is a like if we can't do everything at once, where are the priorities? Is one thing more important than the other, or are they just, both really important and we just gotta tackle it all at once?
We have a real last question now.
For real. Yeah, from a general standpoint, I'd say both of them are the priority, and you could have both of them at the same time. Think about colleges. Black students find themselves, they have clubs for Black students when they feel. And I think that happens a lot of high schools. A lot of high schools in the city have that. They have some of them. Well, there are some that have clubs, and we find ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, you could have both in the same environment. That's not the concern. Diversity is definitely a priority, and it's yeah.
I think that like all of the issues are equally important, but I think one thing that's really important is to not make people of color in school feel like they have to educate white people, or that they're the ones that are in charge of doing that because the school system doesn't do that, or that they don't have ethnic study classes, and because we have an equity club at our school, and it feels like what I feel like being a person of color in that room is just that I'm there to educate white people, and I'm there to say things that other people are afraid of saying and are too uncomfortable to say. And I think, and white people at my school feel like they're not allowed to be in that club because there aren't people of color. But I think it's important to know that like white people have this ability to be allies, and they can be there for people, and they can be there for people of color. It's not like they can just sit back and be silent. They can help us in this journey to diversity.
You mentioned two kind of conflicting ideas in your question, which are, we want more integrated schools and spaces, but we also want to be with people who look like us and have similar backgrounds. And that's because when schools were first integrated, you know, there weren't things in place that would allow healthy relationships to grow, which is why people find safety in those that look like them or have the same background. And I think if proper relationships are actually implemented the way that they should, then you'll start to see these two seemingly conflicting ideas start to come together.
I think if there is diversity in schools, then true diversity, then there would be people who are like you in your school, but also people who are not like you in your school. And I think the academic diversity, socioeconomic diversity, and racial diversity are all like very closely correlated. But I think the one that's the most pressing right now, which is like kind of correlates to them all and would sort them all out, I guess, is like academic diversity, because that, like, on our policy plan we have 20%, at least 20% ELA proficient, and no more than 70% ELA proficient should be the only schools that are only high schools that are allowed to exist, I guess. And that itself would diversify high schools racially and socioeconomically.
Last question. Thank you. This is for real, the last question. Thank you all for coming. First of all, it's great to hear from you. You guys have been really wonderful in educating all of us in terms of how you see the system. And one thing I just wanted to I hope that you guys can take away from this is how this event came about is these CECs working together, which is something that, not that we didn't want to do, we just haven't tried before. And we did it, and it went out really well. And something I hope that you guys can do too going forward. And want to get your thoughts in terms of how you keep the momentum going on this, how you guys work together, get to different parts of the city, like mine, East Harlem. We'd love to have you there. I know some of you are from there or went to school there, to kind of get us to be more integrated in general. So we don't just do this once in a while, but more often than that. But I congratulate you. You guys are on a great trajectory, and I hope you keep it going.
Much like what's happened here tonight, collaboration between different groups and people is very important. I see no reason why, if we're fighting for the same thing, why we should be fighting for it alone in two separate rooms or areas. We're stronger together than we are apart. And this isn't the first time I've seen or worked with people from Teens Take Charge or any other youth-led group fighting for school integration or restorative justice or anything of the sort. Like you'll see the same faces for years, you know, and it's wonderful to see those faces and to be able to collaborate with people. And I think that's how we keep things going, by doing different things on our own, but still coming together and pushing forward together.
So I want to thank everyone for coming out. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? All 6 CECs, we were in a room one day at a meeting, and we thought, with all the issues around the specialized high schools and all that stuff, let's do an event together and have our kids be the voices for the issue around segregation. And I think this is one of the most wonderful things we've done as a group. But I hope at the end of this, it will give us a charge, each of us in this room, to go back to your respective communities and really think about how you can educate those around you who may be ignorant to how segregation is affecting our children, but also take the responsibility to do one thing in your child's school, community, that's going to help to begin to break segregation down, right? And so CECs are a great way for adults and parents to get involved, whether you are a business owner, you have a child in school or not. We have committees through across the city. We have 32 districts, whether you live in Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, or Queens. There's a place where you can get involved and help us to begin to hold the system accountable so that all of our kids get an opportunity to have a decent education. Diversity is a must. 51 years later, we're still trying to figure out how to work together, live together, educate together. So my hope tonight is that as a group of parents and leaders, you're in this room because something in you stirred to say that you want to do something different. I ask you to act on that. Join a CEC, join a PTA, join a committee, give funds to, time, talent, to the services that you see that are trying to make our city better. We have a lot of pizza upstairs. So if you haven't ate, please go upstairs and take pizza on your way out. And please look out for our CECs to do more events like this across the city. If we have,